What's up, guys? Hope you guys are well. My name is Omar Farouk. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Glorify, the e-commerce focused design tool that you all love, built for entrepreneurs. Welcome to our podcast, The Path to Glory. I've been really excited for this particular session, and it's our first session, in fact. So, of course, I'm really excited. We bring to you successful entrepreneurs, experts, and gurus, and deep dive into their story, the ups, the downs, the middles, etc. And specifically on this podcast today, I'm delighted to welcome to you Carlos Alvarez. Hey, say hello, Carlos.
What's up, man? What's up, Omar? You and Glorify absolutely rock. I would even add a little line in there that says the last e-commerce design tool you'll ever need.
Thanks, man.
That's what it's felt like for my team.
Coming from you, that means a lot to us, definitely. So thank you. Just a quick introduction on Carlos. Carlos, I'll give you a little time to just kind of fill in the gap yourself. But just so you guys know who Carlos is, he's the founder of Bluebird Media and Marketing Solutions and the Wizards of Amazon. Carlos is a successful full-time Amazon seller for nearly 14 years. I mean, that's way past the ASM days, if I can make that right. And now he offers his expertise to his audience, which is awesome. And there's nothing better than giving back. Once you've learned something and it works, and the tools work, and the system works, then pass that on so that other people can achieve the same success. And so he's doing that. But what I find really interesting about Carlos is that even though he's now in the position of an Amazon consultant or guru, if you like, he still continues to sell on Amazon himself, which I think is unique, because a lot of people, they sell on Amazon once they go off route, you can say, or off the grid, and start selling courses or content or services, and they kind of ignore the Amazon business as a whole, and then they go completely into consultancy. Whereas Carlos is doing both, and I think that's authentic because it allows him to now be on top of the trends and the changes within the platform. So I think this is really exciting. I'm just really excited, for him to share more about himself. He's been 9 years now as a consultant, almost a decade. And he's worked for numerous brands across all niches, helping them skyrocket towards success. So, Carlos, I'd love for you to come in and give us a little, intro about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself so we know the ins and outs of who you are.
Definitely. That was an awesome intro, too. I really appreciate it. I'm beyond humbled to be on this show, especially as my understanding the first recording. That's awesome. A bit about me. Wow, under 2 hours is going to be difficult. No, really, it's. I don't have any special skills. I don't have college education or anything like that. I was an elementary school dropout to start, and I literally just walked out of the 3rd or 4th grade and went fishing, just skipping school. I can't imagine now as a parent feeling that way, like knowing my 3rd or 4th grader just walked out. But as you can tell, as you know, once you start growing up and you dropped out of school, you get those sort of jobs that equate to your level of education. So my other friends that didn't, they started really pulling away. So they were in these careers. I was a dairy clerk. I was delivering subs. I was doing that sort of thing. I had an expensive ex-girlfriend at the time, and I was always trying to find like extra things to sell and to get her stuff. And one of those times I got something and I sold it on what I heard was eBay. So we have to be pushing 16 years ago at this point. And I was just hooked on the process. I put something up, somebody I didn't know bought it. I sent it to them. And I got a good review and everything, just absolutely hooked on the process. And I went all in. As I started finding more products to sell, my friends and family were really behind me on that. I think from their side, they probably thought, okay, he's not going to just OD somewhere or end up in prison, or God knows what they thought. And they wanted to support it. So they pulled together $81,000 to support me in investing in this, what they were calling our entrepreneurial tendencies, which I had never heard the term, but I loved it. I immediately got the money and went to go buy one of the more expensive product or the more profitable products that I was selling to date. I'd recently discovered Alibaba. Looked totally different then than it does now. I know some people listening to this are probably going to say, well, why didn't you use trade assurance? And none of that existed? So I went to my supplier, and Elvis from a factory called Pleasure Chest. And I went to go buy these adult novelty products. I sent it to him. what I wanted. And he said, look, we don't have $81,000 of these in stock. So I was actually offended. I didn't understand that a factory would not, it doesn't make sense for them to stock that much product. So I looked for another supplier on Alibaba, found someone named Usman Sise who said he had everything. Sent him all the money and he stole everything from me. So freaked out, total low point. I had already quit my other jobs. I'm still, selling a few things on eBay. I went to go sell a few of my possessions, and this is a real pivotal point for me. And without this happening, I don't think I'm going to be on this podcast, So
I'd like to pause you there just for a moment, because this is like a pinnacle of the entrepreneurial struggle, if I can call it that. But what you described to me, would you say this is very early entrepreneurship? Did you dabble in anything before that? Because this is like the first kind of, as you enter into entrepreneurship, and you some people give up after that first struggle or that first hit, and they come across that first roadblock, and they don't feel the confidence to overcome that first block. Was this that first kind of pinnacle roadblock? Would you call it that? Your first failure?
Absolutely. I had not been stopped at anything. I had not been stolen from. No one had ever given me a reality check, if you will, in this road. I mean, as elementary school, selling blow pops, doing little petty hustles and stuff like that. Nothing like this had happened, and definitely not on this magnitude. Another heavy hit here was I was accustomed to already people seeing me as, oh, we don't expect much from him. But when they saw me selling some stuff online and they were giving me these titles like entrepreneur, and somebody saying, hey, I want to make a few dollars on the side. Can I do this? Like, coming to me for advice. I didn't want to lose that. It was an amazing, empowering feeling. So when I got ripped off, I didn't tell anybody. I went to go sell a few possessions of mine, not much, so that I could get seed capital to somehow maintain this facade, pay everybody back. I was accustomed to being broke. We can peanut butter and jelly it. I had the $5 foot-long Subway menu memorized. Like, I was good with that. But when I went to go sell two of my reptiles, I like reptiles, to a Burmese python, a Colombian red-tailed boa, and the person in front of me in line, holding two pillowcases, the person in front of me in line was paying $25 for 50 live worms. And I remember thinking, like, teary-eyed, I was like, man, I'll dig all day. Where do these worms live? I'll just sell worms. I wind up walking into a public library, still holding the pillowcases, and found an article by a zoologist that said that the herpetology department could save money breeding insects to feed the reptile department instead of paying top dollar to the private market. Trying to fast forward to this story, I wind up breeding these insects. I scour garage sales and create these habitats to breed these insects in my house. Ex-girlfriend had enough. She's gone. And I get knocked on the door one day about 8 months later by code enforcement. And just imagine at that point, a little over 3.5 million crickets in a residential. When they start going off, it's deafening. So I bluff them and say, look, if I throw this stuff out here, it'll be an agricultural disaster. And they go for it. They give me till the next day. Friend lets me get a warehouse, half his warehouse to use to store this stuff and continue selling, because I was selling these live insects, 1,000 to a box on eBay, and a little bit into Amazon. Fast forward another 10 months of pretty much sleeping on the floor in that warehouse and just breeding, packaging, and shipping live insects all day. Somebody approaches me and purchases my company for $2.6 million. And
selling
at that
insects,
point,
that whole warehouse, that whole system that you built.
Yes, it was actually a bad deal.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was ignorant. It was a great deal for me at the time, but it was a bad deal on paper.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess when you know a little bit more about the industry, you can make a better evaluation of things. But I'm curious to know a little bit about that. Sorry to stop you in your track, because the story is leading up to something amazing. But that particular business model for any entrepreneur that wants to get into insect selling, was there kind of system and process that you built around that, would you say? I mean, all businesses are built around processes, right?
Oh yeah, I'm huge. Well, I'm huge into processes now. I don't get into anything unless it's completely processized out. Back then, I didn't even know what a process was, but yes, there's very, very strict processes that you need to go through to make these work. And also, I'm glossing over things like I cold called universities trying to find out who were the types of professors that would know answers to my questions. I didn't know the questions to even search for on the internet. and I read a ton of books on breeding insects. And so like, it wasn't, it wasn't like we got a yoga mat and decided, oh, we're going to learn about yoga. It's super easy. Let's go to the local store and find an influencer. There are no insect influencers.
Yeah.
I sold the company. I hoard around Miami, single, finally with a little bit of money for a little while. And at a certain point, less than a year later, I realized I'm going to go broke by this time next year if I keep up this pace. And the only thing that I had ever successfully done professionally was at selling on eBay and Amazon. So I was like, I'm going to create a brand. And at this point, it was a beverage chilling device brand. I'm going to create a brand and I'm going to resell products online. And I just never looked back. Since then, I've successfully started and exited over a dozen brands who had their origin on Amazon. I currently have 5 brands that I actively sell, and I have in big box retail stores and not just selling online. And as you said in the introduction, I have a marketing consulting agency, and I founded the largest Amazon seller meetup group in the world.
Yeah, that is phenomenal, man. This the story that led you up to that. I've heard plenty of rags to riches stories. I've heard plenty of, fake it till you make it stories. I've heard all kinds of stuff before, early business models, early hustles, early side hustles. But by far, this is the most unique. Like selling insects I have just not come across. And it just goes to show that entrepreneurial spirit. Like you just find, it just sounds to me that your passion for reptiles became a key driver towards your initial success, which is awesome, because I'm a true believer in that your passion can be a massive differentiator to tap into your entrepreneurship spirit, right? So really interesting stuff here, Carlos, but I want to kind of now touch on, as you said, your current businesses at the moment. You've got, you mentioned earlier that we know that you're founder of Wizards of Amazon, the meetup group, which is one of the largest Amazon seller meetup groups in the world. I believe meeting up to 18 times a month, which is super impressive. You've hosted over 250 events per year with renowned guest speakers. I think that's amazing value that you're offering to your community members. This kind of stuff is just gold. I think a lot of people like yourself are trying to, like myself, in fact, we're trying to build communities around a product or offering or around an idea. And I think you've done that really well. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you transition from Amazon to the Wizards of Amazon? Your consultancy first, Bluebird Media, and then to Wizards of Amazon. What was that process like, and why did you do it? In fact,
yeah, I in my businesses, when I launch a product, I know the solid advice out there is start with the exit in mind, and I think it's great advice. But I've never done that. Like I always start with imagining my grandkids working here, and their great grandkids, and it's the family business. I get emotionally attached to the stuff I do. I don't think there's to each their own, but when it comes to that extended to the service-based businesses that I had. So I'm working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And at this point, selling on Amazon, selling on eBay, e-commerce in general, and people start seeing what you do. And I'm very open. I don't hoard knowledge. I mean, we live in the age of Google. I feel like if your business model is based on hiding answers, it's a poor business model. So I'm very open about what I do. I'm very open on how to do it. And people see that and they felt energized by it. So they'd call and they'd ask me about it. And then I'd answer it. But I'm so geeking out about what I do that I answer it. And 2 hours later, we're still on the phone. So the people around me at the time said, look, you got to charge for that. I felt wrong charging for something like that. But it was a way to respect myself and my time and be able to help the people that were actually willing to put some skin in the game. And I realized later those were the ones that actually executed on it, not the ones that weren't willing to put any money involved and they just called whenever they wanted.
That makes sense, by the way. Like it's not until someone's willing to part money that they'll truly take something seriously, and I think you've done them a service rather than if you hadn't just given free advice, I think. So
Yeah, I did the free advice thing for a while and I learned from it. So yeah, I agree 100%. So what happened is I needed to start charging people for this. And it was just coaching is what we called it. And then what happened was I started getting so many coaching clients that my accountants come to me and they're like, Carlos, look, you can't just you need to set something up, because what we can say realistically that you can expense in a service marketing consulting company looks very different than a physical products company that sells stuff online. So I needed to open a totally different business, and that's how that was formalized. And it's been an amazing ride. I've done the typical journey I think most people do with an agency. I offered all services, A to Z. Doesn't matter what you want, we can do it. And we'd have the team. I have a team of 242 virtual assistants and 81 domestic employees. So it was like, yo, you want that done? Yes, we can do that. And then I would immerse myself in learning it.
Manager, sorry to cut you there. Like, who is your project manager? That's a lot of VAs, but yes, continue what you're saying.
Yeah. So I burned out doing that. And then I realized I just want to focus on what I really love. And at that stage, what I really loved, and I still really love, is I love the Amazon side of e-commerce and digital marketing. So I love to be able to take advantage of off Amazon digital marketing tactics to make your Amazon journey more successful. And for any Amazon sellers out there, I'd say the contrast would be, I don't want to launch products that are 100% reliable on gaming Amazon's algorithm, faking reviews. I don't want to play that game. So it wound up being an amazing niche. I'd say it's extremely white hat, and it resonated with a lot of people. So I continued with it. And then 4 years ago, well, actually 6-7 years ago, I began meeting every weekend with a group of friends that started selling around the time I did. And we wanted to go beyond just our informal meetings at Starbucks and telling the same war stories of selling online. And since I had always been the one with my businesses that built a community around them, and I used meetup.com a lot for that, it was very natural to say, you know what, let me create a meetup group and see if there's anyone that wants to learn to sell on Amazon. And wow, we began with just Saturdays, and now that has grown into 18 events per month, a divorce-worthy amount, according to my wife, but she's amazing and supportive. We're pushing 1,000 meetups to date in 4 years, and it's just an amazing, amazing tribe of people.
Sounds like an incredible achievement, man. I'm totally impressed, and I think there's a lot of insights I want to pull out of that. Again, how deeper into how you actually built this community.
Sure.
I guess one thing that I want to start with is at which point did you, because I want to kind of go granular into this journey a little bit more, if you don't mind. So
Absolutely.
At what point did you realize in your Amazon business that you decided to actively take on consultancy? I mean, I know you had a few phone calls, but was there a specific success requirement, would you say, in your Amazon business that you felt that validated you to give advice or consultancy, whether it was for free or paid?
No. And I don't think I've ever said this on a podcast before, but entrepreneurship is hard, and I've been wildly successful by every measure that's important to me, including financial with my businesses. But to this day, I suffer with, I would say, imposter syndrome. You crush it one day, you're full of compliments, and the next day you're wondering, oh my God, who am I to talk to this client? And I was much worse with it. Now I know how to combat it now, but I was much worse with it back then. I didn't even know there was a name for it. So I really had to get pushed into going that way. It was my accountant forcing me to do that. And then some validation whenever I tell somebody, I was like, look, I'm not going to start advertising my services. I don't want no one to really know. I thought that would expose me. It was too vulnerable. And people would say, look, well, so-and-so has already quit his job and tripled his income. And then this other person that we know, she's never been happier. She's now has the time to do blank, blank, and blank. And that is what those success stories that I got to, not everyone results in an amazing success story, but those success stories, I knew that I felt I barely scratched the surface. I could have downloaded even more information into that person. had I had more time, had it had a justifiable ROI to do so.
Absolutely. Well, that makes total sense. I wanted to also ask you about, I don't know if this is private, because this is diving into your
No, that's fine.
consultancy method, but can you describe the process of working with your clients? What kind of relationship do you have with your clients, and how does the process work? Is it a one-to-one coaching call, or do you offer more than that? Are there various packages? How do you?
Yeah, I have four main services right now. To succeed online, I've always been like a geek when it comes to Google SEO. So the only non-Amazon service that I offer, but I offer it in a way that complements Amazon, is Google SEO services. The other three packages are, coaching / consulting, advertising, pay-per-click management, and full account management. Anything outside of that, I know amazing people that I'll connect you with, but I no longer take on anything in those and outside of those capacities. Now, the coaching consulting is obviously not to just put out there a false sense of urgency, but it's obviously a very limited amount of time. I am trading off my very finite amount of time for working with you one-on-one. And you have the bat line, like you have my phone number and direct access to contact me and text me with your problems. I'm alarmingly quick at responding. Plus, we also have weekly one-on-one calls on Zoom, and it's been amazing. I love doing it because I love those early stages, and I also love doing it because I feel that if I could get in at that point, I know we can reach so much higher points, and that from the business side, you're going to be like, well, I got here with this person's advice, and they also offer this service. Why don't I just hire Carlos? So it's worked out amazing.
Okay, that makes total sense. Just a little bit on the client type. Like, is it anyone from someone who's not selling on Amazon is interested in selling, or do they have to be selling on Amazon already?
They don't have to be selling on Amazon. I have some consulting clients that have an idea or said, I heard there's this FBA thing, fulfillment by Amazon, for anyone who doesn't know, like, what's up with that? And we have a great conversation and we go from there. I found that the more experienced the seller is, the less they want consulting and strategy, even though they could really use it. And instead, they would prefer the management services, which is something like, look, I'm tired of doing my advertising. I don't like it. Can you just take over my advertising? Or I don't want to deal with any aspects of my Amazon Seller Central account. Can your team just completely manage it?
Right.
So,
Okay.
so the consulting can cover anything, including what's up. What is this Amazon thing? Can I make money on it? And we can go from there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I come across a lot of e-com entrepreneurs, not just e-com entrepreneurs, in fact, but people who have dabbled in drop shipping, other kind of e-commerce models, people even selling software, and you see this kind of path that they go through. Sometimes they've made it in a specific business model, they convert that into an agency model, which is what you seem to do. But what's unique about yourself is you continued your Amazon business as well, which I said in the intro is that something that I really admire about yourself is you're still in the game. So you've got authentic information to pass on to your clients. You're never going to be out of date. Right?
Yeah, that's something I believe I would stop offering consulting and management services when I stopped selling products. I don't want to, that's a personal choice. I personally don't want to be that person giving out advice. Things change so rapidly week to week nowadays, everywhere on social media and digital marketing, Amazon's especially. I don't want to be offering outdated advice.
Absolutely. I think that's a great ethos to work by. Just a little bit on the processes of your agency, again, just diving a bit deeper, is I come across a lot of agency owners who, whether they're kind of doing a consultancy service for Amazon sellers or marketers, etc., the processes are quite hard to establish, if you will. So, what are the kind of inner processes that you've developed? You've mentioned VAs, project management, that kind of thing. What kind of ecosystem have you created to make sure that everything flows well? And I believe a company like yours has everything intact and flows quite naturally. So I'd love to get a little bit of insight into that, so that our users can. Yeah,
everything flows naturally until you bring on a new thing, and then there's that rough, fumbling around until you fully streamline it on a process. But like I mentioned before, I have a virtual army for a team, and I've structured it to where I have 4 C-level virtual assistants, kind of top down, or C-level. I'm not even sure where I got that from, but I guess I saw them as like corporate level. So I have 4 C-level virtual assistants. Then the only people they speak to is about 6 to 8. We've gone as high as 9 M-level, like manager level virtual assistants. And then everyone else is broken off into pods of 4 to 6 with a team leader in each one. So the team leader speaks to the M-level, the C-level, and I only deal with the 4 people on that org chart, if you will. Now, the meetup group has created a very unique thing to where I goofed. I didn't think, well, this is not a business. It's just a meetup group. I don't need to create all these processes before I start. But if you're having 18 events per month, that's a job, like no matter how much you're enjoying it. So the meetup has found me being very reactive with the processes instead of proactive. And we're doing really good with that. So another huge thing for me when it comes to creating processes is I'm a big believer in teams. And that's a very, very hard thing to do, is to actually get hired and be on the team. We spend a great deal of resources in getting the right people on the team. Away though from humans and people, if you will, on the team, is tools. I feel like I have a very unique view on that. And we use a Trello board for people to give recommendations on tools. But before anyone can recommend a tool, but what they must do is they must phrase it in a sentence of, we're going to hire this tool, and this hire has these qualities and can work these hours. And when we do that, it's like, well, I'm going to use, I guess, the Glorify app as an example, which I absolutely love. You're not having me say anything like that. This is just me geeking out about Glorify. And I can barely match my clothes, so I know nothing of design. So Glorify rocks though. But my team had to look at that and say, what can this hire do? And we started writing out ebook covers, packaging design, and just everything. You start itemizing that out, and we're like, is it at a basic level, or is it intermediate or advanced? And we're like, advanced or high-end intermediate. And how much would that cost us to hire? And we start breaking it down like that. And at the end, if it looks like hiring the tool is just a steal, we do. And that's how we determine how to bring people on. And then also whether it fits into our stack, as far as, can it be processized? Can it be automated? And Glorify checked all those boxes. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that. But more than anything, just understanding your process is I think, very insightful. It just gets harder and harder as your business scales. You know, even just getting 2 more clients, like people at the earlier stage. I used to run an agency, and once you hit that second potential, retainer client, it's just managing that extra weight that a lot of people find difficult to overcome. I certainly found it difficult. And then having an early insight into the tools and the process gives you that added advantage. And I think, you sharing that, I think, super valuable.
Some of the other tools that I use, I love Trello. I wish everything could be done on Trello, but at the end of the day, at the scale that I'm doing, it can't. But I use Basecamp. I use Teamwork Projects. I love process.st. Right. So we can create those checklists for, recurring tasks and trigger them when necessary, and be able to track conditional logic. All of those things are super important for me when building processes or managing projects.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about all of those tools you mentioned, they're scalable with any kind of business model that you're using, right? And that's the great thing about it. So long as you build the processes around them, and like you said, you make sure you validate them for your particular use case, which you definitely have. I want to kind of tap into, and we've covered your agency. I want to go into the Amazon's Wizards group and the events you're creating, because again, there's something that in there that personally, it makes me smile, because you've conducted over 250 events a year, which is, I think, a massive. That's huge, right? And on top of that, the value that you're offering to your community is unfounded. So, just tell us a little bit about the Amazon's Wizards group and the events you've hosted, and who are some of the guest speakers that have attended that event, those events.
God, well, in the Amazon space, for pretty much it's a who's who of in the Amazon space. I try to. Well, I've done it to date. I'd say 100%. And before somebody comes in, even if you are a who's who or you've done the podcast circuit in the amongst the Amazon podcasts, um, when you come present, it can't be just a regurgitated webinar. It can't be something that we could have watched on replay. It needs to be tactical. It needs to be something people can execute on. I make sure the speakers beforehand need to write out what can attendees expect to take away. So that's been great. The majority of those pushing 1,000 live events, I've actually hosted and I've been the speaker. We've been a lot more guest speakers now that we're on Zoom. I'm taking advantage of the fact that we're not limited to the geographical area of Miami or me paying to fly somebody in and Airbnb and all that. But I've hosted the majority of those events, and it covers A to Z on Amazon, like every model of selling. I also have to say that I could not have done that on my own. So I can't take all the credit there. I've either attracted or groomed some amazing team leaders in that group. So we have the Amazon Seller Meetup group in Spanish, which is the Wizards of Amazon in Spanish. I've not hosted a single one of those events, and the membership is just exploding. That would be Alexis Leal. We have Gabe, so we host trips that take people to China as a massive group to go product sourcing. Obviously not right now with COVID, but just to have an amazing group of team leaders around me.
Right. It sounds incredible. So you even host. You actually. It sounds like a Mind Valley for Amazon, which is interesting. I don't know if you heard of Mind Valley, but they host all these events around the globe, and they mastermind together in these exquisite areas and places. It's awesome that the idea that you can create a community around one particular business model, which is Amazon. And the opportunity around that is quite impressive.
It's initially I wanted it to be e-commerce and business, but I felt, and I've just learned in growing communities in the past, that there needs to be a focus or something to rally around. And Amazon was that thing when I started it. We're gradually introducing, multi-channel selling, events and things that are not Amazon specific, sneaking in some digital marketing so I can scratch my itch. And also, I have to say that in the last 4 years hosting these events, I've grown more and become better as a seller, as an agency owner, as just a husband, a dad, everything from sharing and from teaching and from building that community. That was something that I did not expect going in. I was terrified to get up in front of these groups and start talking about this. And I instead felt so powerful afterwards. And I felt so, I can sit here all day and tell you how to sell on Amazon, but you get a beginner in there to say, why do you do that? And then you have to explain the why. I think it allows you to achieve a much closer relationship with mastery than just memorizing something by rote.
That's really powerful, man. Absolutely. So I'm just kind of intaking what you just said there. And again, it's just the impact of sharing. I think, once you've accumulated all this success, experiences, etc., then you have the platform to share it, and you build that. It just takes your message further. It helps other people lift their lives as well, which I totally see. I can see Amazon Wizards as part of that movement, right? To help others lift themselves in the Amazon space, and I think that's great. There's one thing that I think a lot of our viewers would like to know about yourself, which is, you've got a lot on your plate, man. You've got Amazon Wizards, you got the Bluebird Marketing Consultancy, and you've got your own Amazon business. I know you mentioned teams before, but you still have a family. You still got, I believe you have kids as well. You have one child or?
Two kids now. I have a 2.5-year-old son, and my daughter just turned 8 months yesterday. I have 4 dogs.
That's beautiful, man. So Yeah, man, how do you balance it all? Because a lot of us are family people as well. Not all of us are in the game quite early, like in our early 20s. Like some people have the added advantage of starting early. Um, not all of us have that luxury, but family life balance is not easy with the life of an entrepreneur, especially an ambitious entrepreneur like yourself. That's going out there and making change as well. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. How do you balance family work life?
I don't think I do a very good job at it. To be fair, I I'm not sure. I think it's more of quality of time. Like some things it's a very easy viewable balance. I spend 50% of my time at work and I spend 50% of my time with the family. But I couldn't achieve that. And if I did that, I'd constantly, while I'm spending time with the family, not be mentally present because I'd be thinking about, I let my foot off the gas at work and only did 50% there. So it's something, it's my number one priority, especially as being a dad, a relatively new dad. My number one goal above everything is to be a rock star dad, to be a present father, to be an amazing husband, present. And I think that's important because that's something I've struggled with. You give it all, you lay it all on the table, and you get there, and you're somewhere else. I'm just like anyone else in that regard. I'm trying to figure it out. I have hired coaches. A huge help for me is I use the high performance planner. I've always been into journaling. The high performance planner has been great for me by, I think it's Brendan Bouchard. That doing that at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day is, it forces you to say, what's the most important? What can you do today to be, to show, appreciation or something the most to this one person? And that's what I do. I try my best and I look for people that are doing it. I've hired Tony Robbins. I've done a lot. I've done everything I can think of to try to solve that. I think it's one of those things that will always be a challenge, like cash flow in your business. But yeah, that's an awesome question. It's something I'm working on.
To be asked just because you got these three massive moving components in your business life, and I think I personally have something very similar going on with my business and how I operate things, and we're growing different software products as well around Glorify, which becomes difficult to manage. My wife is heavily involved with the business, so for me it was important to ask that, and plus I think a lot of our audience would love to know these kind of things, which is interesting. I think you mentioned Tony Robbins there. I think no doubt someone like him and the advice he offers really helps build your mindset to discover purpose in your business, but also work-family balance. But it's like one of those beautiful yin yangs of life, right? It's like your family and your work. They both need each other to function, but at the same time, they can't function without each other. But at the same time, you can't have one over the other. Which is interesting. I guess it's just an ongoing battle, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, and to further complicate it, I don't believe I could have been anywhere near as successful as I've been without my wife. She's not involved in my day-to-day businesses, but she's that rock for me. She's that moral compass that I have. She's the person I go to when I'm like, I'm unsure about this, and this is what I think, but this is what everyone's asking. She's amazing. So that further complicates it because then you start feeling guilty. You're like, look, I don't want to take my foot off the gas in my profession, but I also don't want to neglect this, the love of my life, this amazing, brilliant person who's my partner. So yeah, it's that we're even having this conversation. I think says a lot about both of us and where our hearts are at.
I hope so. Yeah. I don't know about myself. I think I need to work on balance a little bit better, but definitely that's honorable. So let's kind of end it on a very important topic, and we can kind of start to close off from here, which is the big C, man, COVID-19, right? I think everyone's got questions around COVID-19. You can't go through a business podcast without understanding the relevance and the impact COVID-19 has had on different business models and ecosystems. So give us a little insight on that. I've been out of the Amazon game for a few years now, and I haven't started an Amazon business since. I sold it back in 2015. And so someone someone like yourself who works one-to-one with a lot of Amazon business owners and who's an Amazon business yourself, I think will give us a lot of good insight into this. Like what's happening, what's happened to the Amazon space with COVID-19. How's it affected it?
Yeah, I've something we didn't really touch on here is I have over 50 businesses at this point, and a lot of them are not Amazon related. So I mean, I'll have a lot of local brick and mortar businesses, service-based businesses that I've used profits from Amazon selling to do my way of diversifying, if you will. And not all of them have been affected the same way by COVID. The first thing I'd like to say, especially to people, because I've come across a lot of them in my group, is COVID-19 is not an excuse to fold your business, not an excuse to say I can't be successful. My businesses, if you look at the timing, thrived the most in the 2008, 2009 here in the US with the economy crash. You just have to be willing to adapt in your business to what's going on. Those who are not going to adapt, they're going to die. That's I hate that, but that is just the truth. Impact it's had on me. Some of my businesses, especially local businesses where there's social distancing or just a total lockdown, they've been annihilated. Just may not exist anymore. On the e-commerce side, initially with Amazon, they started restricting the acceptance or prioritizing of non-essential products. So say your entire business thrived off of the tourist industry and neck pillows and stuff like that, you were just done from one day to the next. Other businesses of mine only saw a decrease of 40%, whereas others saw, we can't even calculate it because we started running out of stock, but like an 1,800% increase in sales.
Wow.
The net after all of this, not to say that we should take COVID any less seriously than what it is. It's destroyed some people's lives, and one death is too much. But on the business side, COVID's going to be a massive net gain for me and for the majority of the e-com sellers that I know. E-com selling is just through the roof, especially on Amazon Prime 2-day delivery. In the US here, we had 54% of all households with an Amazon Prime account. I would expect it to be pushing 60 at the end of this. My neighbors who I can see out my window who are very anti-Amazon, I see those boxes arriving now, so I'm assuming they have become Prime members. I think as an e-commerce seller that this, I hate to make, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but this could be one of the best things to happen to e-com
Well, I've heard like e-commerce is years ahead, right?
Yes.
I've heard facts like, it just had to evolve 10 years past its original state, which makes total sense because, like you said, this massive adoption of e-commerce had to be done in the current state, in the current situation, the current space.
It's a great time to be involved in e-commerce. Absolutely great time. There are some industries, some niches within e-commerce that are not, I mean, even travel. I work with some people that, are into travel, travel jewelry, certain niches that you would have expected you're lucky if you get one sale a month at this point. And they're thriving already. So great time to be in e-commerce. Absolute amazing time.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that positivity, Carlos, to be honest, because there's a lot of withholding and holding back in the entrepreneurship community, and a lot of people who are, especially people who are trying to start out, right? Which makes sense. And hearing that from yourself, I think, is a massive motivator. So we do really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, everybody can be a successful entrepreneur on the upswing. When everything's going good, everyone is this successful entrepreneur and can put out courses. You don't get to really test your mettle until something doesn't go your way. So we've been on this gravy train for a little while. This is where you get to really stand up, stand out, grow your business, and earn your stripes, if you will.
Absolutely. You have to be resilient, like you said. I totally agree with you there. Is there any advice you'd give new entrepreneurs who are trying to aspire to sell on Amazon now, considering sort of the whole COVID-19 environment in mind? what kind of advice would you give new entrepreneurs starting out?
Yeah. The number one piece of advice, don't chase the trends right now. Don't jump in and start trying to sell hand sanitizer and PPE like everyone's thinking. Like, it seems if you don't understand Amazon, that's the gold mine. It's an amazing opportunity right now to do that. Don't do it. Think about, put yourself in the shoes of people that, if you did want to capitalize on COVID-19 and help people, think about the things that people would needing to be at home more, or not wanting to go out in crowds more. Like, what fun activities could they do with their kids? And think about products like that. Don't look at the data and the trends on Amazon right now and make purchases according to that, because it's completely skewed based on what's happening in the world with COVID. The other thing that I'm biased on is join a local group. A lot of them are virtual right now. There's a huge difference between being a faceless person in a massive Facebook community, which groups are awesome. I have one, but also connect locally, IRL or by Zoom, with people that you can connect with locally to grow your business.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I think that's given us clarity, especially on the trends thing, because it's quite easy to go on that train. I think just the deeper insights, like I've seen people scaling businesses on, like you said, stay-at-home entertainment products and stuff like that, board games, etc. And there's so many little unique strategies and pockets that you can look into. Carlos, has been an amazing session. Thanks so much for your time and all the insights you've given us. I think we've just got a 3-in-1 package today, like, everything from startup to agency, e-commerce business model startup, to agency creation, to the event space, and having that is awesome. And we might have to even have you again another time to kind of go deeper into those different spaces that you're in.
I want to get you back on my podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to as well. That's awesome, man. So thanks, man. It's been great having you. One last thing for the audience in mind, where can they find you, and what's the best place to see what you do, and especially everything surrounding the Amazon community that you have.
Sure. The absolute easiest way to get a hold of me is I put my number on these shows. You can text me at 305-902-1283. I'm very active on Instagram at Wizards of Amazon. Facebook group Wizards of Amazon. If you're not really into Facebook and you're more into a chat community, we have AmazonGroupChat.com, which will take you to our Telegram chat that we have. And also, if you could give me a listen on the Wizards of Amazon podcast, I would love it.
Great, awesome, man. Thanks a lot again, Carlos. It's been great.
You're awesome, man. Thank you so much.